said, I'm going to introduce our panelists here. First, I'm going to ask you to turn off your phones if the ringer's on. If you want to take video, that's great. They're all very photogenic, as you can see. So, first, I'm going to introduce Steve here on my right. Steve is our mayor of Farmington, in case you didn't know. He's been a longtime design volunteer for the city and downtown. His leadership on the DDA Design Committee and I made this really wordy. And service on the city council have led the development of public spaces and investment in urban design and impact our downtown during his tenure. I hope I said that right. He's a principal and owner of 2 architectural firms in downtown Farmington and lives and benefits from the walkable downtown each day. And then we have Sue to his right. I can't see Sue. Sue, far lights over here. There she is. All right, we have her in the dark. Sue led the design team, led the team that designed the Grand River streetscape, the one that's out here in front of this theater, and wait, lost my place, as well as the plans for the future Farmington Road streetscape. She's a principal in the landscape architectural firm, Grissim, Metz and Associates. Her design work has been shaping, sorry, can't see it now. Turn around, I'll face this way. Her design work has been shaping local and national downtowns for years. I'm really sorry about that, Sue. I should have done a better job. And then there's Mark Nickita, right? Did I get it right? Oh, good. He's the city commissioner in Birmingham, noted as one of the most walkable cities in America. Having served multiple terms there as mayor, in addition to his day job as a principal of an urban design and architectural firm, Archive DS. Mark is a developer and entrepreneur with extensive knowledge of urban retail establishments as a co-owner of multiple downtown establishments. Last week, he was awarded the prestigious Charles Blessing Award from the Detroit AIA. Congratulations. And thanks for making the time to be here with us on this Tuesday night, all of you. And then, of course, Kate. Hopefully all of you know Kate. Kate's our downtown development director. And Kate, she brings an experience as an urban planner and designer to her work every day and is enthusiastic about where we're headed as a Main Street Select Downtown Community. And if you don't know what a Main Street Select Downtown Community is, we'll talk about that some more. Kate can tell you, but she is responsible for the free popcorn tonight. So, let's give her a hand, all right? So we're gonna get started with some questions, and then when we're done with the questions, we're gonna try to save some time here for some Q&A. So save up your questions, and although if you want to be interrupted, we could try to interrupt you. Okay, and the first question we're going to direct at Steve and Sue. You were instrumental in designing the Grand River streetscape more than a decade ago. What were you trying to fix, and what were some of the community obstacles at the time? Here's 3 questions in a row, all the same subject, or was it overwhelming support? So.
Well, I'm gonna actually let Sue take this one first because I'm really, really interested to hear what she has to say. None of us has talked to each other yet tonight about, we've had these questions for a couple days to ponder, but I'm really curious. Sue doesn't live in Farmington, she lives in nearby community, but she's very familiar with Farmington, has working with us for so long. So I'm really curious to know what Sue's answer is to these questions.
Okay. So we worked, before we started on the Grand River streetscape, we worked on the downtown plan and really got invested in trying to make your downtown authentic and unique and kind of satisfy all the different desires to become the downtown you all wanted. One of the biggest issues that was brought forward back in the downtown plan was safety, walkability, getting the pedestrians on more even foot with the vehicular road. I don't know if, Kate, you have any photos, but before you, Steve and others started campaigning with MDOT, basically your downtown had very narrow sidewalks and it was an extra lane wide, and trying to cross the corner at Farmington Road and Grand River was very scary. So that was first and foremost, was to solve that. And then another was trying to get the vitality back to your community, because the stores had started to kind of decline. The quality was starting to kind of show. There were a lot of you know, for sale signs and things in windows, and it just wasn't giving the best image. So that was another big component of the design. And what we tried to do was, again, try to create something authentic. I think one of the strongest things that came across was your brick paver rug, that design. It's truly unique, that when you come here, it's not like any other city that you see around. And it's holding the test of time 10 years later. So that was something key that we really tried to develop.
Yeah, it's great to hear your perspective and jog some memories. We started really with a overarching view of looking at Farmington, and this was 16, 17 years ago, I think 2002, 2003. And there were some pictures up here earlier, I don't know if we've got them, but how many people here remember what downtown Farmington looked at in the early aughts? Half of you, but half of you don't. I think a lot of people that are here tonight, yeah, so it didn't look like that in the early aughts. There was a lot of, MDOT was very proud of the highway that cut right through Farmington, and they were able to get traffic, vehicles and trucks through Farmington at a high rate of speed, and traffic flowed really well. But for people that wanted to have a downtown environment, which more and more, obviously, that's an attractive amenity for people to have when they're looking for a place to live. We had some real challenges. Working with Grissim Metz, we identified, and actually I see Joanne McShane here. I remember she was on our master plan group way back when, and one of the very first things we did was very sort of basic idea. It's like, well, where do we gather as a community? We didn't really have other than maybe the local pub, we didn't really have a gathering place, a sort of centroid of our downtown, like many cities out east might have, small towns out east might have. So we identified, if anybody remembers Harmony House, where Harmony House used to be over where Starbucks area is, that was just a busted up giant sea of asphalt. And that really sort of got identified as the centroid of the town. You know, Farmington developed in the 60s and 70s especially. The automobile was sort of paramount, and strip malls were very popular, and so a lot of our downtown was adjusted, let's say, to try and wedge in some strip malls. And so we had a downtown that was sort of half suburban and half quaint downtown, and we were trying to basically turn back time and reclaim some of the downtown bones that we knew were there. So in many ways, we like I said, we started with the very basic questions. We identified the core. That is now Riley Park and the Pavilion. That is where our farmers market occurs every week. That's where the concerts are every week. That's where the swing dancing is every week. None of those things. We did have a farmers market, but it met in another parking lot in another strip mall. But we didn't have that core. And so that was so critically important. And Sue's firm was instrumental in helping with that. And then of course, Grand River, you saw the picture there. It was 4.5 lanes and people would always jockey for position, trying to squeeze down to 2 lanes from 3 to blast through town. But as far as street life, pedestrian life, there was zilch. There was no outdoor dining. You walk downtown now on a warm summer evening, and the sidewalks are filled with people enjoying themselves. Aesthetically, it's beautiful. And one of the things I was hoping to do tonight was to try and remind people that maybe have forgotten what the downtown was 20 years ago. And for those of you that maybe haven't been here for as long, let you know that it didn't just happen. It wasn't, it didn't just sort of accidentally become the place that it is today. There's a lot of very intentional hard work and thought by a lot of people in the community that cared very much about this community over many, many years, and it continues to this day. I could keep talking all night.
I was gonna let you too. You're doing so well. Well, and this is a great question. The next one is, it's directed at you, Sue. You know, how does the Grand River streetscape look to you a decade later? And how are you designing now differently, and what remains the same?
I think, again, I really want to point to the brick pavers, they're clay pavers. They're not concrete, and the color holds forever. I think that is a huge component that's holding the test of time so well, because it provides the richness of the color, the quality of it, as your buildings, you know, are starting to go back to this more authentic and quality materials. It really sends the message well. The landscaping component, 10 years down the road in a streetscape, it's pretty worn out now. That's normal, so that needs to be refreshed, because there
It
is.
definitely has a life
Right,
expectancy.
exactly. So that's starting to undermine kind of the quality look. But the street lights, the furnishings, all of that have held, you know, really well. And those are the bones. What, as designers now, we're finding, working in many downtowns, is to create those bones, make them as quality materials as you can, but also provide flexibility, because who knows what tomorrow is bringing. And so where you have different groups of different sizes, different needs, so those spaces, you wanna make them comfortable for all different types of use, but not get them too nailed down. Just like in your own home, you can update your pillows, your colors, and your paint, but what you wanna do is give those good bones. And the other part is all about maintenance. You know, when we're working on towns, you really wanna make sure what we design, you can maintain it. That is key, and that's, you know, come across really well here. But that we're finding more and more in today's times, everybody wants low maintenance. Well, there always is maintenance, but you know, maintenance that's real clear, so whoever is in charge of the maintenance, it's simple. It's not gonna undermine, you know, the overall, you know, design of your town.
I feel like Sue is teeing this up for me and
She did.
letting everybody know that we're ripping out the hedges next week. Our big beautiful juniper hedges. In front of the Farmington Civic Theater here, and then in front of the Farmington Savings Bank on the south side of Grand River. So they've had a good long run, and now you know.
Yes, and we do have a schedule for replacement for all of it over time. So we recognize that it takes an investment, not just to put it in, but to maintain it. So, and you can't replace it all at once. So we do have a schedule to maintain it and replace it over time. So, good. All right, Mark, you're up.
Okay.
Waiting patiently over here. Downtown Birmingham just completed a streetscape on Old Woodward. Tell us how it came about, how the community navigated through the construction, and the effects of rolling it out out at completion. Easy for me to say.
Okay.
3 questions.
Yeah, I can summarize that. Yeah. Well, we went through this past year. We went through the development of our downtown core, which is sort of our main Old Woodward, and Maple, which is 15 Mile, as a 120-day project, a $7 million streetscape. We needed
Mark,
to.
sorry, how much?
It was just the streetscape.
It was actually 4 blocks. Yeah, $7 million. 100. But to preface that with how much we had to do, because we had infrastructure. We had to do, I think, and I'm not quite sure the extent of what you did here, but we had a complete redo of our street, which had utilities going back to the late 1800s. We had water, sewer, we had all kinds of things that really needed to be done. And essentially, we needed to scrape the entire streetscape from building wall to building wall, 100%. So we took down all the trees, we took down all the lampposts, all of the sidewalks, everything went from the wall of the building to the wall of the building across for 4 solid blocks in the core. But we recognize that this is the most important, in my opinion and others, the most important few blocks in the whole city. I mean, it is the main primary street, very, very important, so we wanted to do it very carefully and had to do it to a very high level. It had not been done, well, the infrastructure hadn't been done in over 100 years, but even the streetscape was remnants of that was going back into the sixties. So we were really living on fumes as far as streetscape goes. We had brick pavers that were, popping up constantly and tripping people. I mean, it was just a really big problem. So ultimately, we redid that. It was 120 days. We had the people out there working 112 of the 120 days. We made it on time and on budget, and it was very, very successful. We added a median, added mid-block crossing, we added some bump outs, significant pedestrianization being added. It was really, really important. It took us a lot of time to prep all of the business owners and all the people that work in the downtown core, both the office workers as well as the people that live there, as well as, of course, all the retailers. Significant amount of prep time. We talked about it for over a year, nearly 2 years prior. We showed them examples of other cities that had been done in a similar manner, to explain what to expect, do everything we can to promote and get everybody to understand the 120 days, what the challenges were going to be. We dealt with parking in a unique way. We had a valet system that was there so that we could bring people to come in and address their parking needs without having them sort of wander around and figure out what to do when this whole street was gone. So there's a lot of prep and a lot of effort done, and I think that most people would find it to have been quite successful. And the last thing I would say is it was actually one piece, and I know that from discussion with Steve earlier, I know that you're looking at the next phase of your streetscape here in the city. What we just did here on Old Woodward in Birmingham was actually our second phase of our complete downtown redo. A few years ago, we did the north end of Old Woodward. That was completed, did a lot of work there. This was our second phase, which was right in the core, the main 4 streets. We're just in the or 4 blocks, I should say. We're in the process of finalizing the design for the next phase, which would be the 3rd phase. It's a $5 million redo of Maple, which is 15 mile from Southfield to Main Woodward, and that'll be about 5 blocks. And again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to scrape everything from wall to wall and do the same level. And then lastly, 2 years from now, we'll be doing the south end of town, another 4 or 5 blocks to Lincoln, and that'll be the complete. So we're doing it in segments, trying to give everybody a breather between. So it's been a 2-year sort of cycle, and about 3 years from now, we'll have everything complete, and the downtown will be set for many, many decades to come.
Great. So I assume and I don't know if it's too soon, but the response, I'm assuming, has been great to the completion of the project, but also the result.
I've heard almost exclusively positive comments, and there's no doubt that we've added, I think similar to what was done here, a level of pedestrianization that wasn't existing before. There's a comfort level, wider sidewalks, less distance from curb to curb to get across the wide streets that we had. The paving is very clean, very simple, and it's pristine, and it sort of allows the focus to be on the buildings, which is sort of our concept for downtown. And it's been very, very successful, and I think that people have welcomed it. And I think, believe it or not, with all the challenges of doing something that extensive, I think that we expected more complaints, let's say. And I think that we had a few, but I think overall people knew it was coming, and they prepared, and in the end, they were glad it was done, and we're happy that we went through it, and I think it's been very successful.
I've actually got a follow-up question, if I may.
Please.
Have you, Mark, in the process and the phasing of these different components of completing the downtown streetscapes, have you run into any headwinds along any step of the way? And if so, for what reason?
Headwinds in terms of anything specific?
Folks that are saying, you know what, we don't want to do this, it's too expensive, it's too disruptive, et cetera, et cetera.
I think with any large infrastructure project, well, frankly, with any large project of any sort, you're going to get a certain amount of people that are uncomfortable with the change. They're looking at the challenges that will be there. Of course, businesses are really concerned about their ability to sort of weather the storm. So there's always some level of concern, but I think that, you know, you have to recognize that, that these things, if you don't deal with the changes, for one, you can't advance the city in a manner that's appropriate for the current day environment, which is, in our opinion, the importance of adding and emphasizing the pedestrianization of the city and carrying it to another level. And that's very important for safety, for comfort level, and ultimately for the live, work, and play environment that we're hoping to enhance. But I think that you also have to recognize that if you don't deal with these things, that ultimately you're gonna deal with them by hook or by crook. You'll be forced to. You know, in the middle of winter, there's going to be a main broke, you know, underground, broken pipe, something like that. You're gonna be ripping things out, you're patching things together, and that's a big disruption as well. So and it starts to become quite costly. So we were getting more and more of these things happening through the winter months, and it was inevitable that we had to do that. And I think it's appropriate for us to take, you know, take the tough pill and deal with it, and hopefully explain to as many sort of naysayers, if you will, to the importance of it and the levels of importance. And then last thing I would say is obviously on time and on budget. You tell people it's gonna be 120 days, don't make it 140 days, because that's a level of trust, and you're asking everybody to put a lot on the line and trust you as a city to follow through. And we took that very, very seriously. Like I said, we had our